Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
I'm Michael Burke, and this is Money Talks. Hi, welcome to Money Talks, the Journal Times online business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke, and with me today is Rick Olson, who is running not one but two really interesting businesses on the edge of downtown. One of them, which we'll get to, is an indoor motocross facility, and but we're going to start with your aquaculture or fish raising. A little background, Rick. You actually own 3 old industrial buildings, as I say, kind of on the fringe of downtown, Water Street and Marquette area, the largest of which is pretty well full up as a warehouse, right?
Yeah, it's 400,000 square feet. It's right on the Root River, in the Azarian Marina Complex area.
Yeah. The other 2 are good-sized buildings in their own right. The 200,000 square foot one at the corner, southeast corner of Marquette and Water Street, 4-story building. What was that building originally?
J.I. Case built it, turn of the century, maybe a little before. It had rail access coming in from the City Hall parking lot under that viaduct right there. In fact, the whole area had rail access. He built it, and it was originally the Plow Works.
They built plows there.
Yeah. If you look really, really, really close, on the south brick wall, at the very top of the building, there's just a vague hint of a sign that would say J.I. Case.
Yeah, so it's this massive building with massive timbers, really interesting building. But you needed to find a use for it. So how did that lead to aquaponics, which is now aquaculture? Why don't you define the difference briefly, too, between those 2 terms?
Aquaculture is raising fish. Aquaponics is a combination of aquaculture and hydroponics. Originally, we had no clue that hydroponics would be in the mix because we were interested in raising fish. Just finding a use for the building. Originally, I bought the building as a warehouse. I was going to store stuff in it, just like I do across the street, rent it out. But that just never happened. And when the economy turned, I had to find a use for it, and the aquaculture.
So let me jump in here, and because I've written several stories about Natural Green Farms, which was the name of the aquaponics operation in there that Joe Heineman were running. Right. Joe and Joe, same first names. Yeah. And they had, you can help me out here, but they had a pretty interesting mix of raising lettuce and using and tilapia in tanks, tilapia fish, and using the waste products from the tilapia to fertilize the lettuce, kind of in a sort of a loop system.
Sure. It's all still there. The methodology of them raising the lettuce hydroponically has been abandoned. They were using an NFT system, and
what's that?
It's a nutrient-filled tray.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like a gutter. And it was just, it's a great way of doing it if you're going to raise it outside and where you'd have free energy, sunlight. But inside, there was too much energy going past the tray, hitting the floor, and it was very expensive from an electrical standpoint. Plus, it was very difficult to harvest because the trays were 10 or 12 feet long, and you had to pull the tray off and then rotate it and then individually. It morphed into a raft system that Joe also developed, and that's where the produce would float on little hunks of styrofoam, square 2x2 cubes
Yeah.
that would float on the surface of the nutrient-filled water and float under lights. Much more efficient system, worked much better, but currently I'm not using it.
Yeah. Every time I would be in there, the operation would look different, and he would have made some leap ahead in just in innovation and gotten more efficient.
Right.
And I think the last story I did was, I believe it was about this time last winter, in other words, early in 2012, and they were consolidated down to one room. They seemed to have a system that would work, but unfortunately, what happened?
Well, bringing the window of harvest is only about a week for the plant, and to have that plant go from the raft to a customer turned out to be difficult.
Let's just briefly explain why there's such a short window when you raise lettuce, and that's because it's a horticultural phenomenon. That's because it wants to bolt. In other words, produce seed,
Right.
and then it shoots a stalk up the middle. It doesn't even look like lettuce anymore. It doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just marvel at the people who actually do it and get it to market. But it was difficult the way Joe was doing it.
So last summer he had a couple of crop failures, and eventually, unfortunately, they basically lost the operation.
Right.
And you have now.
I bought the assets from the bank. There was a collateral on a farm loan, and that's how I got into being a farmer.
So you went from being a landlord and being able to sit back to having to do it, and you've made some really interesting choices in what you decided to raise there. What are you raising now?
Well, I've moved away from the hydroponic. Not that I can't do it, but I found it difficult, as Joe did, to marry the product to the customer timely. So I'm raising giant river prawns, freshwater prawns, in the raft area that the produce was raised in. Now it's a raceway. I'm drawing water out of it, oxygenating it, filtering it, and putting it back, heating it, and putting it back into in there. And I have 20,000 giant river prawns in the raceway.
Where do they come from? Now, a prawn is very similar to a shrimp, right? And when I looked at them, they're still pretty small. They're only maybe 3 inches long, but they look like crayfish.
Yeah,
right?
20,000 of them came to me in 5 plastic bags, air freight. And so they were extraordinarily small. In fact, I couldn't figure out how they could conceive that there were 20,000 in those 5 bags. I'm sure it's weight, but they were just so small, and it looked like so few. But now they're much bigger, and there's a lot of them.
So it's a flesh that is a lot like shrimp. And where are prawns eaten, or by whom?
Well, in Europe, prawns are almost synonymous with shrimp. The larger the shrimp get, the more likely they're to be called a prawn. They're eaten all over the world. It's, shrimp is probably the #1 seafood out there being produced for consumption.
And in this country, who eats them? Because you don't hear that term much.
Down south, Cajun areas, tiger prawns. You can go to the grocery store and buy tiger prawns.
Okay.
Costco sells tiger prawns, probably $14 a pound.
So, and you're still raising the tilapia, but the big difference here is, one big difference is prawns are a much higher value product that you're trying for here than
tilapia is the low end of the fish scale, no pun intended. So we sell it for a low value, $2.50, $2.65 a pound, and maybe has a potential of $3 a pound because it's alive. But it takes a year to raise. Now the prawns is a 180-day cycle, and we should be able to get $7 a pound for the prawns. So the economics is much better.
Yeah, it seems like a good choice if it works, and we should be clear that you haven't yet come to a harvest.
This is very experimental. My first 20,000 prawns I managed to kill in 3 days, And these guys are thriving right now. But it's the
After how many days?
About 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I really need to separate the big ones from the little ones. The males grow a lot faster than the females, and I'm working on that.
Mm-hmm.
I also have to expand my layering within the tank. That gives them more area to operate. They're very territorial, and they're carnivores, and they're also cannibalistic. So if one feels threatened, another one is encroaching on their space, they'll fight, and one will win, and then the other one will eat them.
Yeah. What have you done you made the big choice to try this, and by the way, is anyone else doing this, raising prawns indoors?
Not that I know of. There's one professor at the University of Texas A&M that claims to have a system to raise shrimp indoors, and it doesn't really say a lot on the internet about it, but it looks to be a similar concept. Where he has pond liner wooden structures elevated, and he's putting the little ones at the top and floating them down to the bottom eventually as they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
What are you doing to become more efficient with whatever the main resources are? Now, you've obviously reduced the need for electricity vastly because you're not raising plants at the moment.
Right.
But what else are you doing to try? What are the other inputs for this operation, and what are you doing to make them more efficient?
Oxygen was a huge input for the fish. These guys were spending $1,500 a month, maybe $2,000 a month on liquid oxygen. And so I've gone...
Because otherwise, let's just explain, because otherwise the fish use up the oxygen in the water and they start going belly up.
Right. The level of oxygen in the water has to be around 6 parts per million, maybe less than 12 parts per million. But if you get down to 1 or 2 parts per million, they start to die.
And can I ask you, with the Heinemann's tanks, those tilapia were pretty much... they were absolutely packed in there, absolutely packed. So you had a lot of fish, a lot of big fish. It's not like they all had a lot of swimming room or breathing room or anything.
From what we're discovering is that you can have a lot of fish in a tank if they're small, and then as they progressively get bigger and bigger, you have to have fewer and fewer fish in a tank. Therefore, I need more tanks. And I actually have this business for partnerships for the business for sale on eBay, in order to try and get capital to build more tanks. Today's banking environment isn't conducive to going out and
that's for sure.
Getting a loan for an experimental kind of thing.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. So back to the oxygen, what are you doing differently?
Well, I bought an oxygen generator that uses compressed air. Then you run the compressed air through an air dryer that I had, and then runs into a cylinder through this machine that controls timing, on, off, open and close valves. And the cylinder is filled with zeolite sand. And zeolite sand is just a natural sand that is mined in New Mexico, and that absorbs nitrogen. So it lets the oxygen of, your room air is 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen. Lets the oxygen pass through, and we collect that in a tank under pressure. And then in this cycling process, the nitrogen is purged off into the room. It's such a large room, it doesn't matter that it's being diluted in the rest of the air. The other thing we're doing is I've acquired an ozone machine from a university, also through eBay, interesting enough, that only has a couple hundred hours on it. It was virtually a brand new machine, has its own compressor, has its own oxygen generator on it, and then it has its own plasma device to create ozone. And ozone gas is just a miracle when it comes to oxidizing any carbon matter that's in water, or even surface carbon. Ozonated water would be a perfect sterilizer.
I wanted to take the word oxidizing. In this use, you're talking about killing the...
bacteria and viruses and any kind of pathogen that could affect fish. So many water treatment facilities use ozone to
Right.
treat the water.
Right.
And so the byproduct of using ozone is you get gobs of dissolved oxygen, because the O3 molecule destroys itself and becomes a dissolved O2 molecule. And that's what...
And water, right?
And water.
Yeah.
And that's what the liquid oxygen's all about, is getting into the water as O2,
Yeah.
as a dissolved oxygen. And so by utilizing the ozone machine, I'll not only clean up the water, I'll eliminate the cost of the oxygen, the liquid oxygen, and have cleaner water and oxygenated water. And this machine has the capacity for a swimming pool. So
it'll be plenty large enough for
plenty
your...
large for my expansion plans.
So that should be, again, talk about leaps forward by using that technology. And you don't have it installed yet,
It's not
correct?
installed yet,
But,
but you have to be careful because ozone is dangerous.
Yeah.
And I need a stainless steel contact tank to have a dwell time for this ozonated water to reside in while this oxidation process takes place. And then I've acquired an ultraviolet sterilizer, aquafine sterilizer, that will kill the residual ozone that's in the water prior to it getting back to the fish.
Or
And
break it up is probably a better term.
And that's all of a recirculating kind of system.
So,
We'll still use a biofilter prior to the ozone,
okay.
but
Yeah. So what do you estimate that will do to your costs of how much were they spending on?
they're spending $1,500 easy a month on liquid oxygen.
And what do you think you'll be able to operate
Right
at?
now, I'm spending about half of it because I'm using some siphoning techniques to siphon air. Just take room air, run it through a Mazzy injector. So moving water is drawing oxygen in. And I have, originally there were 2 pumps moving water. Now I have 4 pumps moving water because I have twice the tanks in operation. As we expand, we'll add more pumps, and we'll change the diameter of the pipes from 1.5 inch and 2-inch pipes up to 4-inch pipes and bigger pumps. And
Yeah. And when you install the ozone generator, you should eliminate your cost of having to buy oxygen then,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to, how do you plan to harvest and sell the prawns, assuming this works out and they get to the size they should get to? Would you...
Very, very similar to the way we sell the fish. We sell the fish alive, and the price point we get, even though it's the low end of the fish market from my perspective, it's a very high price for tilapia, because the grocery store guy can buy tilapia for $1 a pound, dead, frozen, and put it out. He'll sell it for $1.99 or two something a pound, and I'm getting more for the wholesale price to the grocery store than he's retailing the frozen dead stuff from China. So, but people have a perceived value of that a frozen dead fish can't be as good as one that's alive and swimming in a tank in front of
Oh,
them.
is that right? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he's selling the live stuff for $3.99 a pound.
Yeah. I want to touch briefly on another potential business opportunity that has come your way. You are thinking about getting into the plant raising business in one particular way. Tell about that.
The problem in hydroponics that I perceived was marrying the customer to the harvest. And that's because there's a very narrow window, a week maybe. So I'm going a different direction. I want to get a contract to grow something for a customer. And what's come up is an extract. So right now I'm experimenting with root plants, Peruvian purple potatoes and purple carrots, to grow those hydroponically and then supply that root to an extract company that would take the extract out, only the color and use that in the pharmaceutical industry.
And you've been approached by that industry.
I have been approached by the industry. In fact, I talked to him today.
How does that get you around the tremendous cost of electricity for the lights, though?
Well, you still have electricity for the lights, but now you have a known customer and a known end to you have a sale. And so the cost of producing the plant hydroponically isn't an overwhelming hurdle. You just have to be able to sell it. And what was happening prior was that the plants were growing, you incurred this cost, and there was not 100% sell-through. So then you had waste, and waste makes that cost skyrocket.
Yeah.
I was spending $3,000 a month on electricity and not getting $3,000 a month worth of sales, much less covering the cost of any of the other effort.
Yeah, well, it'll be really fascinating to see where this goes, and if you get that first harvest, and if you get into the extract business too. But I want to move to your other endeavor now downtown, and it's more than an endeavor. It's actually a going viable business, although a seasonal one, and that's Racine Indoor Motocross. What's the exact address of that?
It's 1150 Water Street.
So that's at the northwest corner of where Water meets Marquette Street. Huge building. That's sprawling building of 100,000 square feet.
It was a Western Publishing building. That's the bindery where they bound all the golden books for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Had a nice little bridge that crossed the river going up to their main headquarters.
And it runs for seemingly blocks along.
It's 100,000 square feet, a little beyond that.
And all on one level, so it looks really large. And you've turned that into an indoor motocross facility for the last 3 years?
3 years. September, I think in August of 2010, I went before the city council to get an occupancy permit. And by December 19th, I think we opened up.
What was whose idea was it? Was it your idea to?
No, there was an acquaintance of mine mentioned it, and I didn't think much of it. And then there was another fellow who came about and mentioned it, and he was so aggressive about mentioning it that I hired a consultant from Minneapolis who's in the business, builds tracks, has a couple of indoor tracks, and his company name is Motosaki. And he came down, kicked the tires, said we could do this in this building, and gave me insight into the business and what the cost would be involved, and what the potential revenue would be. Now, his ideas of revenue far exceeded what we're actually doing. But his cost end was pretty reasonable, and he told me what I had to have, and he wanted to build a track, and it was encouraging enough that I went ahead and did it. He wanted to build the track, but I found a local guy to build the track.
So what you've created in there is a half-mile long looping track with all kinds of jumps and
jumps,
things.
turns, undulations, rhythm sections.
How much dirt was brought into that building?
700 semi-loads, the big trucks with the double axle in the back.
How long did that all take?
It wasn't supposed to be that long, but the fellow who was building it didn't have enough trucks, so he actually encouraged all his friends. And he's an excavator, so he had a lot of dump truck friends. And
so as they were doing jobs, they said, "Here, I've got a dump truck full of dirt for you."
But it was all black dirt, and there was a big debate over what kind of dirt. Clay or sand. Everybody had their own opinion, but I chose black dirt. It was the excavator's suggestion as well, because if this failed, at least I'd have an asset to sell.
Yeah, right.
Everybody loves black dirt.
Sure.
And
otherwise known as topsoil.
Topsoil.
Yeah.
And it got built.
How successful has it been, and what part of the year are you using it?
We're using it from October to March, and the peak season is in December, January, February. It's really a 3-month business that I stretch to 6 months.
Because otherwise people are riding outdoors.
They ride outside, and they're all racers by heart. And the outside venues are racetracks. So they have competitions. In Wisconsin is District 16, Illinois is District 17, and they have competitions from half a dozen tracks or more in each district. And it's publicized in a local magazine published out of Franksville, Cycle USA.
So you run this, I think, 3 days a week. What does a person pay to ride around inside there?
Actually, we're open 6 days a week.
Oh, 6 days.
And the day we're closed is a Wednesday, and there's a class in there. A fellow comes in and teaches motocross, and he'll teach a guy who's good at it, and he'll teach a novice. So it's really open 7 days a week.
And what do they typically pay to?
For the lesson,
they pay by the hour or something?
Well, the lesson I think is around $50 for the lesson. And
no, I meant just for your for the normal usage.
For on weekends, it's $40 and $50 if you're a member or a non-member. During the week, it's anywhere from $20 on a special day.
For how long? What period of time?
As long as we're open.
Oh,
you know, this is a very intense sport. So we have guys my age and your age out there that will wear themselves out in an hour, and you have kids that 16 that can ride for 2 or 3 hours. But even that wears them out.
Yeah.
Wears them out. It's only the little kids that don't give up.
And what area are you drawing from? Where do your customers come from, and how much repeat business are you getting?
It's very much repeat business, and weekdays it's pretty local. Milwaukee, Waukesha, Kenosha, Burlington, Union Grove, that kind of draw. Maybe Twin Lakes, Spring, some of the northern Illinois, just on the weekdays. And the weekends, it's anywhere. You know, this past weekend we had people from Indiana, people from Iowa.
Really?
Wow. And southern Illinois, Green Bay group came down.
Is that because there are so few places like this, or because they just like to change it up and try different tracks?
There's so few places like this. The closest one to this location is in New Richmond, Wisconsin, which is about 300 miles away.
Oh, wow.
And I think there's one in Ohio that's probably another 350 miles away.
Yeah.
So it's very unique.
So now your only two problems are paying property taxes on that building of something like $20,000 a year and justifying them, and the fact that you have a seasonal business. So tell your latest idea about extending the use of that building.
Well, yeah, you have to use the building all year in order to be able to pay the property tax, you know, and whether the taxes are too high or just right is another debate. But I'd like to use the track using dune buggy-esque machines. There'd be four-wheel drive, 250cc, side-by-side seat with crisscross strap.
How fast do these things go?
Well, we would governor them down. Even the motorbikes don't go over 15 or 20.
So
very rarely do they get out of second gear.
So these would be sort of like the go-kart tracks.
Only it would be all-terrain. You know, so there'd be much bigger wheels with lug tires on them, and it would be going up and down hills.
Yeah.
We would actually have...
And this would be a very recreational thing.
Very much.
Yeah.
We'd have to tame the track a little bit.
Oh, you would?
Yeah. So at the end of the motocross season, the jumps would become rolling hills. Kind of thing. Even though these dirt buggies would be strong enough and aggressive enough to leap into the air, we don't want them to leap too high or too far.
And so this would be a recreational thing, and you just go for...
18 and up kind of thing.
As far as the drivers, right?
Drivers,
but
yeah.
would they be able to have children in the...
If there's an 18 and up driver, you have someone with you, co-pilot.
So it's sort of a, kind of an amusement park type of activity that you're thinking about turning it into in those other months,
right?
Where somebody would pay a certain amount and get a certain times around the track or something.
$20, 10 laps or something like that. And even a motorbike takes a minute and a half. Even the best riders are maybe a minute 20 seconds. to get around the half mile. So these things will easily be 2 minutes or more.
So you'd have a really fun 2 or 3 minute ride around, and
20 minutes.
You can do it again then.
Right. If they like it, I think it should be a repeat kind of venue.
Yeah.
In addition to that, the small section of the track, we're building it right now, is for RC cars. And the RC cars.
Those are the remote operated ones?
Yeah, remote operated cars. They're anywhere from a Indy style car to a truck to some sort of all-terrain vehicle. They have morphed from gasoline engines to batteries.
When do you expect to start the use of that?
That track's almost halfway done.
So what month are we talking about, maybe? Or what part of the year?
In March, I would say
March of 2013, because
we should have
we're early February 2013 right now.
I would like to get that, because the dirt bike guys are also RC guys, so there's some cross-pollination there.
Oh, yeah.
And they're the fellows that are building the track. I mean, I hopped on the skid steer and put some dirt where I was told to put dirt, and they're over there with rakes and shovels putting the track together, because that's what they want to use.
So that sounds like it's going to happen. What about the dirt buggy? How likely is that to happen, and when might it happen?
It's likely to happen. I have to research the insurance aspect of it. Right now, I'm insured for motocross in a practice facility, and there's no renting of equipment involved. I think renting of equipment is a big deal.
Oh, is
so
it?
I have to find out but the insurance is available, no doubt. There are tracks around the country that do just the same thing. They're not indoor tracks. They're just, the back 40 in Florida, for example.
What's the likelihood sitting here today of us seeing something like that within the next 6 months or so?
I would say it's pretty good, more than 80%.
All right, we'll look for that. Well, Rick Olson, thanks a lot for being on Money Talks. You got some fascinating things going on in the downtown Racine area. Thanks for watching. You've been watching Money Talks, the Journal Times online business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke. Thanks to our producer today, Greg Shaver, and please watch us again.
Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.